At just 22 years old, Caitlin Clark has already redefined the landscape of women's basketball.
First in the league in fast break points.
Clark connects on a deep three.
During her college career, she shattered numerous records, including becoming the all-time leading scorer in both men's and women's basketball.
For history, there it is! The all-time leading scorer.
In an era where many basketball fans look over women's basketball, Caitlin Clark is filling stadiums, drawing people from across the country who travel hours just to witness her play. It's no exaggeration to say that she's the most monumental figure the WNBA has ever seen. One glimpse of her in action, and anyone will instantly understand why.
Wheeler finds Clark from the logo.
The so-called GOAT of the WNBA, however, Diana Taurasi, seems to harbor some jealousy towards Caitlin Clark, making some controversial remarks about her.
I'm taking Paige. Next question.
Diana Taurasi has been attempting to divert the spotlight from Caitlin Clark and redirect it towards herself.
You were young yourself, and tell me if I'm wrong. Weren't you named to the roster as soon as you graduated, right? You were young.
Yeah. After I won 3 national championships in a row, I was named.
Jeez. So how did you deal with that? I mean, I know Caitlin's on she's got...
The saddest part of this situation is that Diana Taurasi was actually one of Caitlin Clark's idols growing up.
She was probably one of the first women's basketball players I really grew up idolizing.
After Clark was drafted into the WNBA as the consensus #1 overall pick, Taurasi never once reached out to offer any words of encouragement or advice on how to succeed in the league that Clark had always dreamed of being a part of since she was a kid.
Nobody gives me advice in the game. I wish.
Instead, Taurasi appeared on live television and essentially downplayed Clark's abilities.
I'm taking Paige. Next question.
So you've had the #1 pick this year. You would take Paige over Caitlin?
Absolutely.
Well, on June 30th, 2024, these two were finally set to meet, and Diana was about to get a front row seat to the biggest thing that has ever happened to women's basketball.
It is incredible the economic impact that one person who has disrupted our ecosystem.
June 30th was a blistering day in Phoenix with temperatures climbing above 110 degrees Fahrenheit. The local weather station warned residents to brace themselves for the extreme heat. Despite the blistering heat, 17,000 fans made their way to the Footprint Center, drawn by the promise of seeing a superstar.
Yeah, when I was sitting down in my seat all the way down there, I looked in every single corner of the Footprint Center to just make sure that somebody was sitting in every single seat, and they are.
For Caitlin, it was just another day at the office, seeing the excitement of her fans and signing autographs for everyone who came to watch her perform. For Diana Taurasi, however, even with her 20-year career, this was arguably the most significant WNBA game she had ever been a part of.
In front of the largest crowd since 1997.
What about that?
How about that?
I mean, she was witnessing unprecedented moments in her WNBA career, such as front row tickets selling for $2,000 each.
Court sides were going for as high as $2,000 for the front row for this game.
To put things in perspective, the Minnesota Lynx, the top team in the Western Conference and one of the most popular in the WNBA, typically sells courtside tickets for about $257. Anyway, DT grasped the significance of this game and recognized that history was unfolding in real time as she introduced herself to the one and only. To kick off the game, Diana couldn't have been happier. She was in complete control, getting whatever she wanted whenever she wanted. Not only was she scoring effortlessly, but she was also piling up assists. And when I say piling up assists, I mean simply passing to 6'9" Brittany Griner, who towered over everyone on the court like a character straight out of Attack on Titan. Oh, and just a quick side note, this was the first full WNBA game where I've watched Brittany Griner play. And the first thought that struck me was how crazy she was to claim she could take on DeMarcus Cousins, especially when Cousins was in his prime, pre-injury.
I'm just going to use that to fuel this. I mean, I'm better, but and I know that kind of gets at him, but it's okay. It's okay. It's okay, little man.
As I watched more of her game, it became clear that there's really no comparison at all. Cousins would have eaten her for breakfast. So I just wanted to throw this out there. That was my first impression after seeing BG play a full game, was that her claim was absolutely crazy. Anyway, back to her teammate, Diana Taurasi. As I mentioned earlier, she started strong, but as the game progressed, she began to feel pressure and truly experience the full extent of the Caitlin Clark hype.
He's come from above the break. Here's Clark, still trying to find her rhythm. A deep pull. Got it.
Sheesh, guys. Not long after that, DT must have been even more stunned as Caitlin left everyone in awe by completely breaking the ankles of her teammate.
Rebecca Allen. Clark, she dropped Allen like a...
When I saw that, the first thought that crossed my mind was, what if that had been Diana, and what if the shot had gone in? After the Mercury's hot start, Caitlin and the Fever began mounting a comeback.
Quickly up court. Boston running the floor for the layup, and here come the Fever.
Taurasi made an effort to respond to Caitlin's performance at the end of the first quarter, but it didn't pan out the way she wanted. At this point in the game, Taurasi was beginning to feel the heat. Outside, it was over 110 degrees Fahrenheit, but inside, the heat was even more intense, and we all know why.
I'm taking Paige. Next question.
Anyway, Caitlin began to heat up, and the more she did, the more I wondered why this WNBA player made this bold statement.
Who plays the style that how
What
Caitlin
is the
plays?
style? Just threes?
Wow.
It's not just threes.
What is her style?
But back to DT. Overall, she played a decent game, but I was quite disappointed in her performance, and here's why. Despite being the quote-unquote GOAT of the WNBA, she appeared afraid of Caitlin throughout the game. From what I saw, she only challenged Caitlin once, and that was during a pick and roll where it seemed that Caitlin made a clean steal, but the referee called a foul. Honestly, after rewatching that several times, I still didn't see a foul, and it seemed like the refs were unfairly targeting Caitlin once again. And speaking of the refs going against Caitlin, earlier in the game, they called this an offensive foul on her, which was obviously ridiculous.
I don't see how that's an offensive foul to me. That is a defensive foul.
I didn't get that one either.
Fans continue to criticize WNBA referees for their controversial calls against Caitlin. Anyway, another reason for my disappointment in Taurasi was that, despite her passive-aggressive talk about Caitlin, she didn't want any of the smoke and stayed as far away from Caitlin as she could. Time and time, she had the opportunity to defend Caitlin but chose not to. Take this play, for instance. Instead of taking on the challenge of guarding the player she claimed would struggle against grown women, she passed the defensive assignment to her teammate. This happened pretty much every time she matched up against Caitlin. Now, I get it. Her teammate is a better defender, but come on. If you're the GOAT, you have to act like it. Michael Jordan never shied away from defending Kobe, even when he was with the Wizards and Kobe was in his athletic prime. Perhaps she didn't want to risk embarrassment or suffer the same fate as her teammate with a broken ankle. Maybe the pressure of 17,000 fans in the stands was too overwhelming for her. But regardless, she shied away from the challenge, which was what I was waiting to see all game. To make matters worse for Diana, Caitlin continued to bring the heat. For instance, DT missed a three-pointer, only for Caitlin to take it up the court and nail a stunning three from the logo. Then on the very next play, Caitlin baited her into a steal and followed it up with a perfectly executed assist to her teammate. For someone whose game Taurasi claimed wouldn't translate, Caitlin was making her look like barbecue chicken. Diana's worst nightmare was unfolding. How can you talk smack on national television only to get outplayed by the very girl you had been downplaying the whole time? To make matters worse for her, Diana literally had the game in her hands. The Phoenix Mercury were up by 15 points at one point in the second half, only for Caitlin to spearhead the comeback.
Caitlin advertising a comeback here for the Fever.
Adding insult to injury, Diana played a huge role on why her team lost. One play, for example, after missing a three-pointer, she failed to get back on defense quickly enough, leading to a flagrant foul, penalty 1, which granted Indiana 2 free throws and possession. As the game winded down as well, Diana had the chance to extend her team's lead, but managed only 1 out of 2 free throws. On the other end of the court, she watched Caitlin calmly sink both of her free throws. At that moment, there were no more smirks on Diana's face. While many thoughts must have been racing through her mind, one can't help but wonder if she regretted her choice of words.
I'm taking Paige. Next question.
Diana, who had downplayed Clark, was now facing defeat in front of 17,000 fans and probably millions more watching on television. To make matters worse, the Fever hadn't beaten a team with a winning record all season, yet their first victory came against Diana. DT had talked her talk, and now she was being humbled. After the game, she finally had some nice things to say about Caitlin.
What Caitlin's been able to do in her short career so far has just been nothing short of remarkable.
Anyway, this entire episode with the WNBA attacking Clark, in which Diana played a significant role, was nothing short of a gong show. But do you want to know the full story from start to finish on how and why the WNBA targeted Caitlin Clark? If so, don't worry, I've got the complete video for you right here.